Hello, I'm Voltaire Tupas of Move PH, Rappler's civic engagement arm. Welcome to the ASEAN Social Good. This is an event which will highlight the importance of innovation in building an inclusive ASEAN. We are holding this event on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit and other related meetings. But today, to start the discussion, let's call Gemma Mendoza, the head of Rappler's Content Strategy and Research, to kick off the discussion.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. It's a very busy time because there's so many things happening outside. But we're happy to hold this event right now with our partners here from Impact Hub and Scope Group Corporation of Scope Group Co. of Malaysia, because this really ties with our initiative that started with the Social Good Summit. We started doing the Social Good Summit when the year Rappler was born in 2012. When Rappler was born, the first conversations were all about how do you use social media for social good, how do you use technology for social good. And that has evolved since, and that has what we have been trying to do from 2012 was to move that conversation forward from words, from ideas to action. And we started doing that with Hack Society in 2015. 2016. The 5th Social Good Summit was when we introduced Hack Society. It was still just a section of Hack Society, of the Social Good Summit then. And we are happy to say that one of the participants of ASEAN Impact Challenge here is an alumnus of Hack Society, the first Hack Society in 2016, Robbie. And at the time, his group was still, Barangay Aquaphonics. Now you're uproot. So we're very happy that some of those ideas still survive, and we really want what we really want to do with Hack Society and the Social Good Initiative is to help somehow foster that environment, that ecosystem that helps ideas like this surface and grow and be instruments in changing society. And we're happy that we're doing it in the context of the ASEAN as well, because as we all know, while the ASEAN is, the 7th in terms of population, 7th largest economy in the world. It also has among the poorest, some of the poorest countries as well. So the ideas that this group of young people generate will really be important in helping solve those those challenges that we still face, that our region, the countries within our region still face. So thank you very much for being here, and welcome to Rappler.
Thank you, Gemma. And to open the forum, let's call Shariha Khalid, co-founder of the Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur. Welcome to the Philippines.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're actually very proud to be partnering with Rappler to take this conversation beyond the walls of this studio. When I first met Maria in 2013, it was at the Social Good Summit in New York. And both Maria and I are under the Plus Social Good program, which is a program started by the UN Foundation, Mashable, and UNDP. So we've come a long way to now collaborating on a program that for us is a very important pathway to discover innovators in Southeast Asia who are taking action to further the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the things that brought us to Manila, obviously, is the ASEAN Summit and the related summits, but it's also a very important occasion of the regional finals of the ASEAN Impact Challenge. And we have 10 finalist teams representing 4 countries in Southeast Asia with us. And they've been with us since Saturday, and yesterday was the awards ceremony. So I'm very happy that, with Rappler hosting us, we're also able to meet other innovators who are based in Manila, because I think one of the key things when you're working in the social innovation space is that you meet others who also come with that same passion, the same motivation to want to make a difference to the challenges that exist in this region. So thank you very much for this partnership, and thank you to all of you for joining the conversation. Welcome.
Thank you, Sharia. If you would not mind, please join us. We're going to start the discussion. This should be an exciting panel because joining us are innovators, leaders from NGOs and UN agencies and other groups, and even individuals are here to share with us their experiences. But the theme of the ASEAN Summit, is to engage the world, to effect change. But of course, it's a motherhood statement. We would like to dig deeper into these ideas and then transform them into action, which is the challenge. So we start with the good practices, the best practices, in fact. And then we also discuss the challenges and then the opportunities ahead of us. But let's talk about the trends first, because you just discussed that there was a hack, an innovation effort that was undertaken this week. And we have the winners with us. What have you seen in that activity? The potential of these young people, of these millennials, engaging in various innovative actions.
So the ASEAN Impact Challenge is now in its third year, and it's essentially a call to innovators who are based in Southeast Asia to participate in order to engage with business. It's a very important thematic area of focus, that it's not just about social innovation or social entrepreneurship, but it's about how innovators who come with an impact intention can connect with businesses that operate in the region as well as governments in order to scale their impact. So it's now in its third year of operations, and we normally do begin with an open call. We launch it on ASEAN Day, which is the 8th of August. And the finalists that have been selected to come to Manila actually went through a process of applying. Some of our partners in country locations around ASEAN actually did a mini hack also to help the applicants to submit a stronger application. But essentially, those who get selected then get to the finals, 10 finalist teams, and they go through a 2-month process, which we call the Global Goals Labs. Now, the intention of the Global Goals Labs, obviously for this particular challenge, is to ready them for the finals, because it is an opportunity for them to pitch and to meet potential customers at events such as the ASEAN Business Investment Summit. But what we have seen is, over the years, we've had about 720 teams apply, almost 3,000 innovators. And more than half of them have been those who have been aged 30 and under. The oldest applicant has been 75, someone in Cambodia, and the youngest has been 18. So it attracts a really diverse range of innovators who are working on the impact agenda. But the key thing is, once they meet each other, we've seen quite a lot of collaborations and knowledge sharing happening as well.
And some of them are here with us. They're joining us. A round of applause to them from Indonesia. Please stand up. Where are they? Okay, here, to my right. Okay, thank you, Sharia. Joining us also in the panel are two friends. They've been very supportive in our efforts on the ground and also in our efforts to promote the SGDs. Please welcome Andrew Parker, Senior Advisor of the United Nations Development Program, and Terry Jaime Mora, Country Director of Ashoka, Philippines. Okay, Terry, you've been involved in these efforts for quite a long time already. How long have you been supporting innovators?
I guess with Ashoka, I've been with them since 2004.
Since 2004, and there has been a very important development in terms of pushing for the Sustainable Development Goals, especially a few months ago or years ago. What challenges have you seen, having seen all these innovators and social entrepreneurs, and how have you helped them?
With the work that we do in Ashoka, so we're a global fellowship of social innovators. And so we've been supporting social entrepreneurs both in the Philippines and across the region. And what we're seeing is still the challenge, and this is something that Cherry was referring to, but this need for greater access to diverse networks of support. Because if you are, let's say you're a social entrepreneur that's working in climate change or in the field of environment, when you're trying to do something innovative, you really need networks that can help connect you to other circles as well, outside of that particular issue area that you're focused on. And that will also open up a range of different resources and other potential collaborations that you can build. And we've found that this idea of unusual allies, and that comes from building rich networks of support. Particularly in the Philippines, we've found that there's so many really interesting innovations out there and social innovators working in the Visayas and Mindanao. But a lot of the support here still tends to be Manila-centric. So I think it's important to push across and to also realize that the work of a social innovator, it evolves over time. And so being able to access different networks that allow you to grow your work and innovate, because the problems will continue to change. And as a problem solver, you have to be able to adapt as well.
Yeah, it's good that you pointed that out, because networks and partnerships are really crucial. But that these should operate and should be nurtured in the context of an environment that enables them to flourish. Let's talk to Andrew. How is the policy environment? Is it supportive in the Philippines and across the region?
Well, thanks, Waltz, for that question. And actually, Gemma mentioned at the beginning, the sheer size of ASEAN now and the growth that we've seen in the region really kind of carries a lot of this, the background for this forward. And I think the challenge, and it's being met in different ways in different ASEAN countries, is really how to create that enabling environment that you're talking about. So as innovators and entrepreneurs who want to engage across borders, they are the ones who are encountering, these challenges of how do you deal with different currency, how do you deal with shipping, how do you deal with distribution, how do you deal with being able to connect up to your markets in an effective and efficient way. And I think this is where government policy can really play a role in providing that environment and really keeping up with the pace of change. And I think that's a real challenge, and it's one of the things that UNDP has been trying to help with different governments. We've set up innovation labs, where we've really looked at trying to help governments deliver public services in more kind of in better, more innovative, dynamic ways. You're seeing with the kinds of young people that we have here, getting beyond the traditional ways of providing services and opening up, creating civic space, encouraging civil society organizations to be more involved, and thinking about how we can close the exclusion gap and really reach people at the last mile, making sure that nobody is left behind.
Having said that, because the terrain is uneven, and I can only imagine the capacities are, of course, different, can we talk about the competitive advantages of the ASEAN region when it comes to new technologies and innovation? What can we further harness?
I think one thing I'd say, just quickly in response to that, is that ASEAN countries have an opportunity to leapfrog, because they're not so caught up with traditional ways of doing things. So you can already cut to more innovative, more environmentally friendly, more socially impactful ways of doing things. And I think that's something that you're seeing across the region, that You know, for example, in China, that has now been, you know, they've become a leader in solar power because they're not locked into all of the traditional grids and ways of kind of producing energy. So I think that leapfrogging is something that the region can really take advantage of.
Yeah. Terry, if we will zoom into the particular situation of Filipino innovators, what have been addressed so far? What hurdles have been overcome?
Hurdles in terms of
of accessibility of access to finance and other capacities.
I think we still have a lot of work to do, but I think one thing that we've been successful in is raising awareness about this path of social innovators, so that young people can, especially when you see, I guess even within ASEAN, but more and more young people are getting involved and feeling that they can help be a part of the solution. So there's a lot of interest and energy behind the fields of social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And I think that's a big hurdle in itself, that now there's this supply of young people that want to do something. And then next step is really connecting them to the resources.
But often governments could not catch up with development because of the old ways of doing things, workflows, policies. How do we further nurture the energies of the youth? What have you seen in these young people? How do we overcome these challenges?
I think one of the key things that we've seen over the last 10 years of our work in this space in general, we've worked with governments, we've worked with development agencies as they also transitioned into becoming more innovative. What we have seen though, there's a lot of potential in working with individuals. So rather than just looking at organizations or bigger system players to find solutions, I think, and this augurs well also with where you guys work in terms of Move PH and all that. It's really about how the citizen sector can actually collaborate with each other to come up with solutions. Now, where does the private sector play a role in this? The private sector is mainly driven by the financial bottom line, right? But they often don't want to spend resources to try new things because it costs money. If something doesn't work, it costs money. So I think this is where the role of innovators and individuals, whether they're a startup or whether they're still at the kind of project level, they can play a really crucial role in the experimentation with different solutions and looking at different business models, going out and validating it in the markets and coming up with, how can I say, a value offering to the private sector, the public sector, as well as also the multilateral agencies. And being individuals, being entrepreneurs, you always have that drive, the motivation to try something new. You take risks. That's why you're an entrepreneur. It's not easy to become an entrepreneur, to take that first step. But the very fact that some of the people who are in the room here, they have taken that step, even without any support from government or anybody else apart from family, friends, and fools, as they say, it already means a lot. So I think having more initiatives like this, having supportive platforms like what Ashoka is doing in terms of nurturing those who have dared to take that step, and then also having organizations such as the United Nations who can help make the connections and convene the right parties around the table. It really takes every single party to work together to provide this enabling environment.
As we speak, what are the opportunities? Because often the problem is access to information, or people don't know where to go, which programs, which windows of opportunities to access. What are these windows of opportunities which young innovators can access?
Well, I'm also a social innovator, started 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago, the field was very much almost non-existent, would say. One of the key things that we found was helpful for us was thinking not like an NGO, you know, really getting into that mindset that we are here to compete with the open market. Now, when you think from that perspective, even though you're coming with the impact intention, that's part of your mandate from the very beginning. You want to deliver a certain amount of impact. But when you're thinking like any other business would think, you'd be looking at opportunities that are available out there. There are trillions available out there for MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. You know, don't put yourself into the category of a social entrepreneur, social innovator, and be niche to that space. You know, ultimately, if you can move the needle on how entrepreneurship, how business is being done, you know, there's really no limit to the capital that is out there.
We're good at piloting projects, introducing small projects, and then usually the next problem would be how to scale up. In your case, Terry, how did you overcome this challenge?
Well, I would say two things. So one is there is a need, so aside from supporting social innovators and social entrepreneurs, and I know that the challenge of scale is always there, and we see that for Ashoka, we see this value in encouraging people to be intrapreneurs, or encouraging the values of innovation and entrepreneurship within, even within larger institutions, within companies, within government. And so as much as we want to support social innovators and founders of social ventures, we also say that for them to be able to scale, they have to find kind of kindred spirits within government, within big business. So I think there's a need to do that. And also, in terms of scale, one of the things that we're focusing on as well is this need to look at things from a systemic change perspective. So a lot of social entrepreneurs that are starting up, they think about social impact and scaling their social impact. They think that that means growing their organization or their business. But one thing that we push for is if you have a systemic perspective on change, then there is also the opportunity to scale your social impact through partnerships, it doesn't always mean just growing your organization itself, and you could build very meaningful partnerships that will allow your impact to scale and your impact to outlive you. So I think that's another perspective that we can push to help increase, to help scale social impact.
UNDP has been good at the supporting innovations on the ground. What are your initiatives in promoting inclusive innovations in particular for social good in the ASEAN region?
We have very many. So to go back to your earlier question about how do people find out, well, I think you need to go to the UNDP websites in each of the countries that you may be in. You'll find all of the kind of information there. I mean, I'll mention a few of them that I have here, and I actually wanted just to pick up on Terry's question about the scale and how you move up. So we have a regional initiative. UNDP has a regional initiative, the UN Social Impact Fund, which has been going for a little while now and supporting various efforts to sort of scale up social enterprises across the region. Here in the Philippines, next year we'll be starting the Innovation for Social Innovation Fund, which is also kind of looking to identify groups of social entrepreneurs that can be brought to a higher scale. And I think that the point about that doesn't necessarily mean that the organization scales. It can scale through different ways. So UNDP's perspective is really to kind of look at the convening aspects, the catalyzing aspects, and to some extent the capitalizing aspect. So obviously UNDP is not the banker to the world for social enterprise. We don't. That's not the right thing for us to do. But we're looking to kind of create models which can then be replicated. So you'll find, for example, in China we have a Geek for Good program, which is now supported more than 2,000 innovation teams that have looked at different ways of providing public services more, in a more effective way. In the Pacific, we have a financial inclusion program which is reaching people in ways that haven't done before. One of the things that strikes me is that we may keep the same names as we've had in programs that we've supported in the past, but when we talk about skills now, we're moving beyond some of the the more traditional kinds of skills that we may have supported in the past to things like in Bangladesh supporting an initiative to help people become IT freelancers. Well, these are skills that 10 years ago, nobody was kind of thinking about, and now people want to know about it. So for people who want to know more, I'd encourage you, each UN country, UNDP has its own website, and you'll find information about innovation that's going on in the country there. Through that information.
Okay, thank you for that information. Let's ask our audience, maybe they can share a few insights and stories, and maybe we can start with our friends from Indonesia, fresh from the challenge. Can you join us? I'll just go to our friends. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your innovation? But first of all, for those who are not really familiar with the language of innovators, who is a social innovator or a social entrepreneur? Based on your definition, based on your experience, how would you define it?
Okay, so what I'm thinking about, like a social. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. Hello, I am Alfie from Indonesia. My startup initiatives is called Jala. So basically, Jala helps farmers to boost their yield and create sustainable farming business. By providing complete farming assistance from farm management, financial, and also technical. So for answering the question, what I'm thinking about social innovators is someone who makes an impact to their societies, but also in terms of their business, they also make profit, because the profit is enable them to scale up and also to give a bigger impact to others as well.
A round of applause. And congratulations. Okay, anyone else who would like to share their story, their experience, or a question to our to the panelists? Any questions? You're innovators. You should know how to innovate questions. Great questions now. Do you have something to share? Don't be shy.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Hannah from Waste for Change. Sorry. Yeah. So I also joining the Asian Impact Challenge, and my social innovatives is called Waste for Change. So it's basically located in Indonesia. And we make a system of responsible waste management because we see the problem in Indonesia. Some of the people already know about segregation system, like in Europe or UK, but our waste collector vendor mostly will mix it again. And some company also have like sustainable target in their company, and we see that the problem is nobody can ensure that the waste will be processed responsibly after they collect the waste. So we came as a solution with responsible waste management system. Yeah, and then if you say what is social enterprise, I think what inspired me the most is like Muhammad Yunus. Yeah, with his microfinancing and their revolutionary idea about how business and social can be in one venture.
And how is it done?
I think it's because the profit that is made from the business will also impact the social movement that they have a mission on it. Like that. So yeah, the one actor that inspired me the most is Muhammad Yunus. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your stories. A round of applause to our friends from Indonesia. Filipinos who would like to share their stories. You're the host country of the ASEAN Summit. Okay.
I'm not a Filipino, I'm from Malaysia. Sorry. Hi, my name is Kim and I'm from Malaysia. I basically run a social enterprise called the Picha Project. It's a social enterprise that empowers refugee families through food delivery and catering business. I just want to ask a question. Just now you mentioned about scaling up through partnership. Can you give more explanation and some examples about the partnership that we can form to scale up our businesses?
Okay, Terry.
So I guess I would need to know more context about your initiative. But in general, I guess examples of partnerships to help scale. So I was referring to how you can help scale your social impact without necessarily it depending on the size of your business or your organization. So some examples of that are you have some social entrepreneurs that choose to do their work more as, so basically they're becoming a best practice. They create the best practice and they're kind of open sourcing, so they're sharing what they've learned and they're sharing their models with other organizations, maybe in different countries that would like to use what they've learned to have the same social impact in another territory. So that's one example of how you can really scale up your impact without having to necessarily grow the business itself.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, one of the key objectives of the ASEAN Impact Challenge is to scale innovations that create impact, partnerships and innovations that create impact. So we also believe very much that it's not about betting on the fastest horse. It really is about betting on the innovation that can create the biggest impact. We do encourage all the ventures. Obviously, it has to start from a venture owning the innovation. We do encourage everybody to capture the formula of how they do things and the business model, because ultimately, that same formula or business model, if it can be applied in Peru and create the same impact, it's also good for your business. Because if you can create a sort of a franchise out of that, social franchising, as they would call it, you can also scale your own business. But another model of partnership could be that you are creating an innovation that could be adopted by a corporation, and they could go into a corporate venturing partnership with you. So there are many ways to do it, but I think what's important for social innovators is that you've really got to capture your processes and the structures of how you deliver the innovation.
Speaking of processes, can we explore all the important elements needed to grow social innovation in the ASEAN region, from access to capital to social infrastructure and the policy environment? What are these elements which should be tackled?
I think what's important from the very beginning, if you're starting up your venture, is to really find a good mentor or advisor. Yeah, of course, you can say the 3 M's that you need in the field of entrepreneurship is the mentors, the money, the markets. But before you can even get to the latter 2, finding a good mentor that can really help you strengthen your business model, really help you validate your idea and also who your target customers are. I think that's very important because, these same mentors could be the ones that can also help introduce you to markets and also money. So yeah, and I really encourage any social innovators starting out in the field to find your unlikely allies. At Impact Hub, we even have a conference actually annually every year to try and gather our unlikely allies around the table, the more unlikely someone would think that would collaborate with them, the more we want to collaborate, actually, because ultimately, if you're driven by this passion to create impact, you want to work with the parties who are either already converted. That's obviously an easier place to start, but it's even better if you can work with those who are just beginning to discover the potential of creating impact.
Okay, any other questions before we wrap up the discussion? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to ask the distinguished panel. Oh, sorry, Joseph De Leon with Gravitas Prime and Manila Angel Investors Network. I'd like to ask the panel, in terms of social good, are some markets or some countries more ready than others in terms of welcoming these brave young souls and giving them money?
Who would like to answer that? Okay. You, Andrew, and then.
No, I don't think I'm qualified. I mean, I think to take a fully regional perspective on that is sort of is quite difficult. I mean, my guess is that there are always pockets, and I think, you know, one of the things that we observed at the start is that ASEAN is a very kind of diverse region, so it has, you know, relatively, you know, quite rich and advanced economies, and then lagging economies. But even within better off countries, you have pockets of poverty. So there's always a lot of work for social entrepreneurs to do, and I think. You know, that kind of challenge around poverty reduction and dealing with questions of inequality, I think, is really what kind of drives social innovators to want to make a difference in their countries. And I don't think anybody's going to actually stand in their way. The question is, how do you create that ecosystem that we've been talking a little bit about to really connect up people who have those great ideas and who can actually help to make them happen on the ground.
Sharia, would you like to give the assessment? What's your observation?
I think really across the board we've seen quite a lot of governments encouraging entrepreneurship, general entrepreneurship. But if you go specifically into social entrepreneurship, then there are a few governments that are really trying very hard to create an environment that can help these types of entrepreneurs thrive. So I would say, if you look at a report done by Thomson Reuters Foundation together with the Global Social Entrepreneurs Network, there are kind of top 10 countries that have been ranked based on the results of interviews with social entrepreneurs themselves.
What are these?
So number 1 is actually the US. I know Malaysia comes as number 9. Singapore, I think, is number 5. I think Korea is high up there, also South Korea. The UK, Australia, and don't ask me to name all 10.
So we're lagging behind. Terry, what's your experience?
Actually, Philippines is there. If I'm not mistaken, Philippines is there.
Yeah, I just can't remember what number we're in.
We'll give you the information as soon as we get it. We have to verify, otherwise we'll be, you know, fake news is rampant, so we can't commit that mistake here. Okay, Terry, what's your observation?
I agree with what they've said. There's really, I think, there's a lot of support for entrepreneurship in general, but social entrepreneurship, I think sometimes there's some discussion about what exactly you mean by social entrepreneurship or social enterprise. So yes, I have it really depends on the country and kind of the networks that are present there.
And to wrap up our discussion, what's a good takeaway which you can share to your fellow social entrepreneurs?
I would say one is to really be clear about the problem that you're trying to solve. I think that as much as there's a lot of focus on social innovation and social entrepreneurship, and many times there's the danger of being focused on the solution and not necessarily the problem. And so I think one is to be clear about the problem that you want to solve, and be, and also ask that question of how, again, we've been talking a lot about scale and sustainability, but what do you need to do so that the impact and the social good that you want to create will really go beyond just you and your organization? And who do you have to collaborate with to make that happen?
On that note, thank you. We're ending this discussion, but we have part 2 with millennials. Thank you for joining us, Shariha Khalid, co-founder of Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur, Terry Jaime Mora, country director of Ashoka Philippines, and Andrew Parker, senior advisor of the United Nations Development Program. Thank you for joining us. We'll take a short break, about 15 minutes, and then please take your seats again after 15 minutes for our part two of our discussion.